Welcome to Singapore Property Talk Law.
Great to be here.
We're diving straight into, well, a rather colorful discussion today, looking at the recent buzz around the repainting of HDB blocks over in Tiong Bahru.
Ah, yes, the purple paint situation.
Exactly. And hey, if you're enjoying these explorations into Singapore's property scene, please do give us a like, maybe subscribe so you don't miss our next deep dive.
Definitely. So today, we're focusing on Tiong Bahru, this situation where the initial choice of purple paint for some blocks sparked quite a reaction.
A strong reaction, you could say.
Definitely. And it ultimately led to a decision to, well, let the residents vote on the final color scheme. It's a really interesting case study, actually.
It is. It touches on how the look of our neighborhoods is decided and, the role residents play or maybe want to play.
Right. So where did it start?
Let's get right into it. So imagine waking up, looking out your window, and seeing a whole story of your HDB block suddenly painted purple. Several shades of it.
Wow.
That's pretty much what happened to Jasmine Chin, a resident in Block 9A Boon Tiong Road. And remember, the rest of the block was still its usual off-white.
So it really stood out then.
Massively. And it wasn't just like a pastel purple either. One of the darker shades, a kind of dark plum, Madam Chin described it as unacceptable.
Okay, strong word.
Yeah. And her concern, which others in blocks 9A and 9B shared, was that if all the blocks ended up looking like that, the estate could look, well, her word was gaudy.
I can see that concern. And it immediately brought up the question, didn't it? Why wasn't there a vote on this?
Exactly. That was the core issue right from the start. It really shows how personal our connection to our living space is.
Absolutely. And it seems it wasn't just a small patch either. The Straits Times saw Block 2A Boon Tiong Road apparently fully painted in lilac shades around the same time.
Right. And then things escalated a bit. Notices started popping up.
In the lift lobbies.
Yeah, in 9A and 9B, basically saying they strongly disapproved of this most saturated and awful purple, their words again, and telling neighbors to contact their MP or the town council.
So people were organizing, making their views known quite directly.
They were, which, prompted a response.
From the MP, Mr. Foo Cexiang.
Yes. On May 10th, he posted on Facebook, acknowledged the concerns, said he'd asked the town council to pause the painting work while he looked into it.
And that message was also put up near the residents' own notices.
That's right, a direct acknowledgement right there in the lobby. And when the press asked, both Mr. Fu and the town council basically referred back to that statement.
Okay, so communication lines were open at least. But what about other residents? Was everyone against the purple?
Not entirely, actually. There was Steve Eng, an accountant Block 9A. He thought the lighter purple shades were quite nice, actually. But he agreed the dark purple was, quote, an eyesore. And importantly, he supported having a vote. Said it was the fairest way, even if, your preferred color doesn't win.
Right, the principle of having a say. And there was also Madam Alice Yap in Block 2A, the block that was already lilac.
Yes, her. She actually liked the makeover, thought it looked good.
Right.
But she was also confused, like others, about why there was no vote this time. She clearly remembered a voting process for colors about 8 years ago.
So there was precedent. That definitely shapes expectations, doesn't it? If you voted before, you kind of expect to vote again.
Exactly. And it seems that's generally the practice, right? Town councils usually do ask residents to vote, offer a few options.
Yeah, I recall reading about Tampines just this year. They had a vote for this pretty unique scheme, red, green, blue, yellow.
Inspired by airplane chess.
That's the one. And apparently 61% of those who voted chose it. But even then...
Even then, there was tweaking. 2 blocks later got repainted white because some residents felt the colors were a bit too glowy.
Shows how subjective color is. Brightness, shade, it all matters. Which brings us to what Mr. Lim Bio Chuan said.
The former coordinating chairman for Pepheed Town Councils?
Yes. He clarified that there's actually no strict rule saying town councils must hold a poll. Each one kind of decides its own process.
But he recommended it, right?
He did. His point was precisely because color preference is so personal, so subjective, a poll is probably the best way to go. Respect the majority view.
Well, that view seems to have prevailed in Tiong Bahru because on May 17th came the announcement.
The residents get to vote after all.
Yep. Residents in 14 HDB blocks there will now get to choose the repainting color. MP Foo Cexiang said he'd spoken to over 200 residents.
Wow, quite a few.
And decided, okay, let's give them the choice. which is, a responsive move.
It is, and he framed it interestingly, too, not just solving a problem, but as an opportunity for community building, getting people involved.
Makes sense. So the poll is happening outside two residence committee centers there. Date's not fixed yet, but the
What
options?
are the options? The original purple?
That's one, yes. The purple theme. And the other main one is keeping the current look, the off-white and light orange, but with some modifications. They might add more options, too. It's not finalized.
Okay, so a clear choice is being presented. But it does make you wonder about that initial purple choice. Why purple in the first place? Was it just random?
Apparently not. Mr. Fu explained it wasn't arbitrary. He connected it back to something that happened in 2015.
Oh, what was that?
A community event where residents actually planted purple-blossomed bougainvillea along Boon Tiong Road.
Oh, okay. So there's a local connection.
Exactly. He said the idea came from discussions involving Miss Indrani Raja, the former advisor, plus residents and architects, trying to link the building color to those, distinctive local flowers.
That's actually quite a thoughtful idea, trying to create that visual link.
It is. And importantly, he stressed that the dark purple people saw on Block 9A, that was just a mock-up, a test patch, basically.
Not the final intended shade.
Right. He reassured people the final purple scheme wouldn't have been that dark. He also touched on why No Vote initially said there isn't really a set protocol for how advisors should handle repainting.
So some ambiguity in the process, perhaps.
Seems like it. He mentioned Ms. Indrani had encouraged him to work with residents and architects, which they were trying to do with the bougainvillea link. And
Okay.
now, once the vote happens...
They expect painting to start pretty quickly.
Yeah, estimate is about 3 to 4 weeks after the color scheme is chosen.
Right. So things are moving towards a resolution now with direct resident input.
Definitely. So wrapping this up, for you following Singapore's property scene, this whole Tiong Bahru episode really highlights that intersection, doesn't it? Between aesthetics, community feeling, and local governance. How our living spaces get shaped.
Absolutely. It throws up that question about balance, planned estate improvements versus genuine resident input. How much say should people have?
Yeah. And this story is a real-time example of feedback actually changing the course of things. It makes you think, perhaps, what other parts of managing our housing estates could benefit from more of this kind of community involvement.
That's a great question. Something definitely worth pondering as you navigate your own property journey, or even just think about your own neighborhood here in Singapore.